Our family gets a bit bigger. The latest from our free daily newsletter at podnews.net. We start with some news about us today. Podnews has acquired Podcast Business Journal, a well-respected podcast newsletter. Podcast Business Journal will publish a weekly roundup of news, podcast business data, and a long-form interview every week. You can sign up for free at podcastbusinessjournal.com. Lemonada Media and Apple Books have launched an audio book club. The companies will select audio books and foster conversations about them across Lemonada's podcast network. iHeart's figures from Podtrack were up in March, not down, as you might have heard me say on Friday. Apologies to our friends at iHeart, we've corrected the original story, #awkward. Squadcast version 5.3 has been released. The new release offers PCM audio, revamped metering, stats for nerds and other enhancements. YouTube Music, which gets podcasting in the US only soon, is adding a sleep timer in readiness. Chatham House focuses on the rise in popularity of podcasts in Kenya. We link to that today from our show notes and our newsletter at podnews.net. Also, a copy of the email announcing the closure of Starburns Audio. Popular podcast app Pocket Casts has increased its optional Plus subscription cost to $40 a year. Only 4 months ago, the company had raised the price from $10 a year to $15 a year. In the Netherlands, all 13 Dutch regional public broadcasters have agreed to remove personally targeted cookie-based advertising from their websites and apps in favour of contextual advertising. The companies join national broadcaster NPO, who did similar in 2020, with a result of increased revenue. Contextual advertising is increasingly used in podcasting too, by companies like Acast and Soundstack. Independent podcast networks say they aren't pivoting to video, reports Ashley Carman in her newsletter. We've linked to that, and also linking to 2 separate stories criticising male podcasters for derogatory comments about women. Pakistani podcaster Nadir Ali and British podcasters and Gigs. And after, everything, and following the lead from Eric Johnson, we will no longer be linking directly to Twitter from our newsletter stories. All links in our archive now redirect to Knitter, a privacy-respecting, non-censored alternative. It's a Monday, so time for some tech stuff. The podcast Podroll element has been proposed. It's a way to signal to podcast apps a list of other shows that this podcaster wishes to recommend. We support this proposal so much, you'll find an example of it in our own RSS feed as of today. And partially to support the Podroll element, Podnews now displays a podcast GUID, the unique identification for every podcast, in our podcast pages. You'll find it under Information for Podcasters if you search for your own podcast at podnews.net. In the Podcasting 2.0 board meeting this week, a long discussion about what format to use for transcriptions, plus a heated discussion about Nostr. Guests are Kevin Finn and Tom Rossi from Buzzsprout. And thank you to those who sent us boosts and boostergrams as they listen using new podcast apps like Fountain. It's very much appreciated, and we thank you. And in podcast news, in the latest edition of Slate Money, Felix Salmon, Emily Peck and Elizabeth Spears talk about the podcasting economy and if the bubble has burst, or if it will soon. Who's Smarted has been acquired by Glassbox Media. The show says it's one of the top-ranked, most downloaded and highest-rated kids and family and education for kids shows in the world, and it comes out 3 times a week. And there's a crisis in the veterinary industry in Australia, a crisis that's killing the people who care for our animals. Sick as a Dog examines the mental health crisis in the vet profession and shines a spotlight on the many challenges, but also explores the potential solutions that exist too. And that's the latest from our newsletter. To read all the stories and subscribe, we're at podnews.net.